sometimes struggling with content to present to you, and we have so many big things going on that are fascinating for anybody to see, and sometimes we get into things that you sooner or later are going to encounter and have not had the experience. So by watching us struggle through some of our dilemmas, you'll learn from our mistakes. But we've got a couple caribou to do. We've got a moose. We've got a 2-bear pedestal,
Wolf?
a wolf, life-size wolf, all kinds of things. So we're just taking them one at a time. And we kind of started on the caribou pedestal to start with. And last week, if you tuned in, you saw us kind of doing a little bit of design work. And the design's changed a little bit. We went from less woodwork and more habitat to a little more woodwork and less habitat, but the concept's going to be the same. And this is our caribou. We started out with the trademark mannequins caribou, which is a really nice looking caribou. It was in a slight left pose, I think, and the customer gave us some pictures of what he was thinking, and it had much more turn than our mannequin did. So Brett, with his handy little sawzall, went to work and just started cutting it. And I think he explained last week how be careful when you start altering forms. Turn only where the animal can turn, and the animal can only turn along along his spine. So if you're going to take a wedge out, only take it to the midline of the spine. Then you can make a relief cut on the other side, and you can turn him. And by making a few, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, and probably a little bit on the head, 5 different pivot points. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties.
Audio test.
Oh, I gotta switch out. Did you turn me off, or are they watching me do it? You sure they can't see me? I feel pretty silly. See, you know why that happened? It's because Kate didn't say, would you say a few words? Okay, ready to go? Where did we leave off? All right. Sorry about that. A little bit of technical difficulties. So anyway, when you cut, only cut to the spine. And that way, if you cut all the way through the animal, you're going to start either shortening his neck, or you're going to be lengthening his neck by going to the spinal column and making all your turns at the spinal column. Your length will usually stay the same or close enough that nobody's going to know. In addition, we needed to make that into a pedestal. And now if we were ordering this from a supply company and we knew we had to make a pedestal because we couldn't find the right size animal for that pedestal, we would ask them to pour it without a backboard. And that makes it much easier for us, because if we had a backboard in, we would have to cut it off, throw it away, and it's just much easier without the backboard in. So we had our foam people pour this one without a backboard. Then we use a lot of a printer's tin.
Yeah,
you can use cardboard,
really nice.
pop box cardboard, I think Brett was telling you about. And we wrapped it around the perimeter of the animal and filled the dammed-in area with foam, 2-part foam. Any of our mannequins are made with about a 3-pound density foam. We carry 2 kinds of foam. We have 3-pound and 10-pound.
10-pound, yeah.
And the 10-pound is hard, very, very hard, like pine. It's nearly like wood. So that swelled way out to here. Then we carved this in kind of a, artsy shape to what we think looks good. And another thing we did was embedded. I think you saw Brett take a block of wood and embedded it in the back of this caribou's pedestal that we extended, because we like to be able to have something to screw to. And since we didn't have a backboard in it, and we wanted to sculpt that back, we put a block of 3/4 inch plywood in there. And so now we have a really nice hidden block back there. It's sunk probably into here, but we can screw it on to anything that we want to. If you wanted to have an attachment back here, you could, screw it to your branch or whatever you kind of wanted to do. There's a lot of different ways to do that. So we still have cosmetics. We're a little rough on our neck bend and things like that. The foam hasn't been made cosmetically pretty yet. But we've got a lot to do. We've got to do nostrils. We have to do lips. We have to do tear ducts. And we began setting antlers off stage because we didn't want it to, to have a disaster like, putting the antlers together last week. So anyway, we started off camera, and we'll show you that. We'll walk you through that because we got a pretty nice, solid set of antlers. Started off a little rocky, but they're gonna turn out really, really good. So where should we start? Lip slot sound like a good idea?
Yeah.
Now, we could put the antlers on now, but then you're working with the antlers. You're turning in to do a lip slot. You're turning in to sculpt the nose. I'm doing a lot of different things with those big bulky antlers in the way. So it's just, there's not a right or wrong. It's just easier for us to do it at this point. So I'm gonna, for me, the easiest, rather than, I'm gonna use a Dremel, and I have a lip slot cutter bit. Rather than doing something like this and not being able to see, or tipping it up and having a funny angle, I'm gonna tip him upside down so I can see really clearly what I'm working on. I want to cut that lip slot at about a 45 to the side of his face. When I get to the front of his lip, I'm going to straighten it up because I'm going to be tucking skin into there. And if I went in too straight like this, if any of you ever mount your animals and get a big old thick lip slot that dries funny for you, sometimes that's because you went in straight, then you tucked a whole bunch of skin in there, which parted your foam, and then that skin dried out, leaving you with a huge black crack up here. And then what did you do? You grabbed for the black color crayon and melted it and put it in there. We've seen this done a lot. So you want to thin your skin, extremely thin. You want to, what do you suppose that is? Is that like smaller than a 16th? That's a little.
Yeah.
They go by numbers when they get that small. I'm not entirely sure. But this is a small lip slot cutter, is it not?
It is, yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to flip him over. And another thing that I'm going to try to do when people tuck the lips on their animals, you have much more skin back in the back corners to go in there, because you're getting the top skin, you're getting this back corner skin, and you're getting the bottom skin. It has to have some place to go. Now you can trim it down very, very short, sometimes too short to where you can't, don't have enough to hold in there. But you got to make a place for that skin to rest, and to do that, oops, that was me this time. To do that, excuse me, I'm going to, with that lip slot cutter, I'm going to try to hollow out an area beneath the surface of the foam, way back in here. You're not going to see it from the outside, but as I start here, I'm going to work my bit underneath the surface of the skin of the foam and try to hollow that out, which is going to make a cavern back there. That way, I'm going to trim my skin down thin, and when we tuck it, it should go in there, and I should have plenty of room for all that extra skin, is my attempt. Okay, I like to cut them upside down just because I can look down on my work. I'm going to start here with my little lip slot cutter. You can use we use a lot of times a small drill bit, very small drill bit. I would rather make it too small and then take sandpaper to widen it out. That works really, really well. These lip slot cutters have the middle of the shaft milled down, so you have a little ball at the end, and you have a narrow, narrow cutting surface, and then you're wide down here. You don't want to go into that wide part. The idea is that it's going to make a void within the surface of the foam that'll give you room to tuck the skin. It seems to work pretty good. Okay, I'm going to start just by plunging it into the corner. Now I'm going to try to make a void back there to accept my extra skin. Okay, now I'm going to maintain a 45 degree angle till I get to the front. I have the best luck by pulling the bit towards me rather than pushing it. Now when I get to the front, I want it to go more straight up and down. Now notice I have my thumb on my left hand guiding this bit and steadying the bit so I don't get a wobbly cut. And now I'm just going to repeat the action on the left side of his face. Now, before I flipped him over, I don't have any now, but I take sandpaper, kind of a fine sand. Oh, you got some. Can I borrow?
It's on the rougher side.
And I'm just going to fold this sandpaper. Little on the thick side. And don't sand too much because you can make these lips. That sandpaper will cut faster than you think. I'm just dragging it right through the slot. It's kind of tight on my sandpaper, which means it'd be really tight on my skin. Now with that small of a shaft, cutting shaft, and this sandpaper, I can kind of control how wide I get. The wider you make your lip slot, the more careful you have to be tucking your lips and doing finish work. So that's the lip process, and we kind of do that for all of our animals, just depending on the how big of an animal it is and how thick of a skin he has, determines what you're going to use for a tool. And many people use a little spatula like this and just punch it through the surface of the foam and then run your sandpaper. That works really well. I've seen you use a knife. We use a knife on a fox quite a bit, you know, because a fox has such thin skin. And you don't want a great big cut to try to tuck your skin. We had hired a person one time that I told this story lots of times.
This story.
And we had a whole bunch of mannequins that got mannequins in from the supply company, and we had like 30 mannequins. And he had come from a taxidermy school that is no longer in existence. And he said, well, I can cut all those, you know. He said, I cut the lips for you. And he did it with a drill bit. And I had never done it with a drill bit. And I was gone for the day, and I came back, and he ruined 30-some mannequins with a great big drill bit. So precise, careful, kind of think about what you're doing and what has to go in there.
Yeah.
So the next thing we have to do, we got to do nostrils, tear duct. We haven't put a rod in yet. I think we'll show them how to do that. That's kind of important. And then we're going to get to those big antlers, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. The ones that we started last week.
That went better than I thought today.
Today went really well. Today went good. Shall we do nostril?
Sure.
Okay. I might start with a few different tools. And because we don't have an artificial nose for this guy, we're going to auger out the nostril just as we would any other animal. I don't know if you can see this one, but we did this one ahead of time for you. So you can probably get real close in there. And so you can see we have depth that comes all the way, it turns, we go back this way, and we also go down this direction. Sorry, we go down and up to the septum, up in here. And that's kind of what we're going to do over here. Now, because we're augering out foam, sorry, you have to chase me. Because we're augering foam, we may not get these perfectly symmetrical. And that's okay, because the next step we'll do is come back and fill that and smooth it out with an epoxy material. But I think you can see that pretty well. And the reason this isn't pre-done for you, I think a lot of you probably already know, but for those that don't, these come out of a 2-piece mold. And so for us to have a tremendous nose interior, it would just break either out of the mold, the rigid mold wouldn't be able to pull out, or the rigid foam would have to give, and that's usually what happens, is the foam will break coming out of the mold. So we give you as much detail as we possibly can, but you're still going to have to do some sculpting and work on your own. So a couple ideas that will help you just as you're envisioning this. If you don't have a caribou cast of your own at home, this is in the deer family, the elk family, all of those are similar. We're going to do this basically like we would a deer. And what we have, if you think of this as a functioning muscle or several muscle groups that work together around these nostrils, this needs to be able to open and to close. And open to take in lots of air, close to keep things out. Caribou are swimmers. Caribou they live in bug-infested areas, so their nostrils can close pretty tight. If you look at the shape of a deer nose or a caribou nose, you'll notice that the top has kind of a wing that comes around and goes inside here, and that's what we're going to cut out. It also has an opening here, and right about where that wing starts on the top, you'll notice there's a depression on the bottom. And the easiest way to think about it is if he closes his nose, the top wing needs to be able to push down into the depression that you create in the bottom. So that way he can seal up nice and tight. So what we'll do first is open up the front. And we'll do that. I've just got a little tool here. I may go to my knife here in a second. just to take out some big chunks. And I'm just going to open that up. And I'm going to open it up in a direction somewhat on about a 45-degree angle back in. I don't want to go straight in from the side. I'm going to go on about a 45, about like that. And I'm also going to keep this in the front fairly flat. Go to my knife so I can cut nice and smooth. Now a caribou has they have a lot of hair on the inside of the nose, and so you're going to have to open these up quite a bit to accommodate the thickness of the skin and the hair on the inside of the nose as well. So you're not really going to see a whole bunch up in there, but we like to show depth. We like to show that to our customer. And now that I have a little bit of space, I'm just going to use a Dremel bit. This is the lip slot cutter that Tom had. I'm going to switch that out, and I'm going to go to a little cut-saw bit like this. This is just a little carbide cut-saw bit. These are the best things ever. From the Dremel bits to the hand rasp, we use them a lot. And I'm just going to go in and start opening this up. Going to be hard to tell you exactly what I'm doing, but hopefully you can follow along. Try to make your opening as smooth as possible. I'm going to go up and define that wing and kind of open it up toward the septum. And I'm going to come in here and start to go down off of that little shelf and up into this tuck. You're not showing them how gray my hair is, are you? Don't do that. I'm going to sneak around on this side, so hopefully you're not seeing my gray hair. Now I'm trying to leave basically the same exterior shape of the nostril because I think this is going to be very attractive and it'll look nice. And I know that Gary Zahner, who sculpted this, is going to he went off of some really good measurements as to how long this is, how tall, and the shape of this muscle. So I really don't want to go crazy with the Dremel here and open things up too much, but I do need to make enough room to tuck skin into the back and around the front. So I am going to open it up just a little. That's probably all I can get with that. The next tool I'm going to use is just a little rasp. And this is a handy little guy for getting in here and smoothing things out. And you can go to as much work doing this or as little as you want to. If you're going to spend time and you're gonna put effort into this, make sure that you're doing a good job that you can sell it and show it to your customer in the end. Always nice to get paid for what you do, but if a customer walks away without you showing him the details that you put into it, more than likely he'll never find it on his own. So if you're gonna do it, make sure and show him what you've done. I think that's probably going to be pretty good for now. I do want to make sure that I can go back and around. Up inside like that. And get plenty of depth. So we have some space there. I'm going to show you the finished one that we've got on the other side. Like that. So we've got that opened up just a little more, and that's the next thing I would do is come back and balance the two sides. So you want to make sure that this opening is the same as that one, and I can feel this one probably needs to open up a little bit more. But the next thing we'll do is finish the interior of the nose with an epoxy, and maybe I'll go this way. There we go, something like that. That'll be easier to show you. And we'll do that with just some Fix-It Sculpt that Tom is mixing feverishly. That looks great. So what did you do there?
Well, we use Fix-It Sculpt. All the different epoxies, I mean, we've got Magic Sculpt, we've got Epoxy Sculpt, we've got Fix-It Sculpt, we've got clay, we've got a lot of different ones. One of the stronger ones, and we use it on antler repairs, is Fix-It Sculpt. And Fix-It Sculpt, somebody described it to you out of all the epoxies. It's the Ferrari of the epoxies.
Yeah.
And so I just took A and B, just like any of the epoxies, knead them together. It works well if your hands are wet. We run it underwater. I made a color, more of a flesh color, by a little bit of Winton Newton oil color paint. I put just a little bit in here. I put too much in here, so it looked a little bit like Pepto-Bismol.
Yep.
So in my panic to hurry up before you were done, I grabbed a couple more little scoops, and I think this should give us a nice base color. It'll dry a little bit, little bit richer than that.
Yep.
But that's something that you can smooth out with water. You can smooth out with safety solvent. Some of them use alcohol, but we like to finish the inside.
Yeah, it's much easier to do nice, smooth detail work now than it is later with all that hair and the nostril skin and everything. Hopefully, when you do it this way, this will minimize your finish work later. So we're just going to come in here and coat the interior. I kind of like the shape of this one. There's not a lot that we need to do shape-wise, but if you were to, if you got a little crazy with your Dremel and took away a little more than you had intended, this is the time where just a little extra thickness of epoxy would take care of that. So I'm just going to come in here.
And we do this with everything. We do it with all of our deer. We do it with moose, caribou, elk. It's nice to have that finish work done.
As long as they can't get one of those fancy new artificial noses.
I know. The caribou noses are not quite ready.
I know.
It's going to
need to go hunting.
Research expedition before we can complete the caribou nose.
I think we should, though. And I wonder, you might be able to get a little bit closer. And there we go. I'll be real still. We might even be able to show you a light in there.
You know, there's different ways to do noses too. Many times before we had the artificial noses for the deer, a lot of times we would actually cut the muzzle off and sculpt in. We had a little template from the back, and we would sculpt in the cartilage passageways from the back as well as from the front, and that can be done very successfully and give you a beautiful nose, but it's rather time consuming. And with the artificial noses, this is all done for you.
And they're nice and symmetrical, and there are advantages to it. But this works great if it were your deer or your elk or anything else that you didn't have an artificial nose for. And once I've got the epoxy kind of roughed into place like this, the next thing to do is to smooth it out. And you can do that with water, or you can do that with safety solvent. Tom got some of both for me, so that's really nice. I'm just going to reach in. One tip is try to get the back smooth first before you smooth out the front, because invariably you'll get this front all exactly how you want it and then have to reach back to get a spot in the back, and you'll damage the work you did in the front. So work from the deepest part to the front. Just smoothing that out, kind of getting it close.
I mean, you brought up a good point. Don't do all this unless you're gonna show your customers what you did and the detail that you put into their mounts, because many of them will not appreciate the effort that taxidermists put into their work.
But once you show them, they can also be your best advertisers too, as long as they know it's there. I've got just enough room for my finger to smooth that out a little bit. And I'll finish it with safety solvent. You can use alcohol, you can use other solvents, lacquer thinner. It's a little harsh, but safety solvent's really nice to work with because it doesn't make things quite as sticky, and works really well. But I would highly recommend doing the majority of the work with water and a brush first, or your finger, or whatever it takes to get this smooth before you go to safety solvent or any solvent, because it will get slightly sticky. But I'm pretty happy with where we are with that. So now we'll come in, and the nice thing about the solvent is that it will melt any little epoxy burrs and really help smooth your transitions and edges and brush strokes. It just kind of melts them away and they smooth out really nice. So there's probably a little more detail we can do with that, clean it up later, but this will give you an idea of what we do with the nostril interior. We've got some other things to move into. Shall we move on?
Sure.
Give them an idea. Oh, I can see. Boy, you are close. I can see one little rough spot right there. I think that'll work. And we can come back if we decided that was still needed some epoxy work. So good enough to get us going?
Perfect.
Now what?
Cut him a tear duct, maybe.
Oh, you want to do that?
I can do it, or you are there.
Ooh, I like your little... Can I use yours?
That would make a good giveaway.
It would. That would. So caribou, like our deer or elk, have a tear duct in the front. Doesn't seem to be quite as deep, but it's still present. The first thing I'm going to do is just break the surface of that foam. I'm not going in any depth at all. I'm just going to make sure that the surface is broken nice. Actually, this tool has a sharp little edge here that would work great. Just break through the surface. And then if you notice the curve or shape of that tool, let's see, there we go, has a little bit of turn to it so that when I go in, I can actually turn the tool and tuck upward and create the slot up rather than straight in. If we were to go straight in, as your skin tucks, it pulls straight out and it doesn't create a natural look. Actually, this is kind of a little muscle that overlaps the bottom. So I'm just going to come in here with Tom's fancy little curvy tool.
That's another area. Make sure you
Tuck
thin your
upward.
skin really good in that area and make a small cut.
Yes.
Tuck it nice and firm, not too tight where you punch a tool through it. And done right, there's nothing to repair.
Yeah. And that's another area that you can really excel over your neighboring taxidermists. If your tear ducts are nice and tight and look clean and handled well, you're more than likely a cut above the majority. And that's really all we do. That just tucks. So now we have a nice slot, just like we have a slot to tuck the lip skin, we have a slot to tuck the tear duct, and you can see there's plenty of room in there, but it's still nice and tight. So that's all we would do. We would do that on both sides and keep going.
Good. And before we go very much farther, we maybe, we're happy with the turn.
Oh,
Kind
yeah,
of match
yeah,
the
yeah.
customer's picture.
Yep.
So we want to reinforce that. When you start cutting forms apart, you could get an air void or something like that in there that we think he's nice and tight, but you put a big set of antlers on something, we want to reinforce that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you made this nice little ready rod, and that is a beefy rod. That would hold a stegosaurus, I think.
That is a stegosaurus rod.
We do this on, there's a lot of different ways to reinforce your necks, but we do something like this. Brett took a piece of ready rod about the length. We want to reinforce, there's no pressure on the head, but from the head union on back to the wide part of the shoulders, we've broken them before.
They have broken before.
So anyway, we're going to drive this right down through the foam. You made a nice, you took a Sawzall and cut a slot for a screwdriver.
Yep.
I don't know why you don't do a Phillips or a Starter.
I know, we should. It's safer.
And you can show them how that. I'll lower this down for you.
Yeah. We're just gonna, because it's a threaded rod and we have it sharp on the end, we can just drill this into the caribou. The only caution, well, lots of cautions, but the only thing we have to worry about here is noise. And so I'm gonna put this in the drill. You could, if you wanted to, start from this slot, if you had a slotted screwdriver, and just start turning it with the screwdriver. We don't have that kind of time. So we're just gonna chuck it in the drill. And we're gonna drill right through. I have to make sure we miss our rod accommodations. I might drill from the back forward, you think?
You can do that, sure. Or the face, either way.
That
I think turn it off.
will, yeah, when we,
'Cause
as
it
soon
gets
as we
loud.
start, it's gonna get loud, and we will turn off the audio because it gets ugly loud.
You should be fine.
I think maybe right here. I think I'll
We are now.
Okay, so we went through, we heated up our drill pretty good. Don't do that. And now we could chuck this in the drill and go in another inch. We'll just show you here. You can take this and put your drill on the torque setting and put your flathead screwdriver bit in. Boy, that's tight. That must be dense foam.
Good foam.
Real good foam. Can you hold his nose just so I don't, there we go. And we'll drill this all the way through. We might not do it on camera just because it's going to take a little bit of time. But that's how we would finish off the last inch or so of that bit. And we're going to countersink this all the way down so it's flush with the foam. We could, at this point, take a reciprocating saw and cut it, but we probably risk scratching up the mannequin. We don't want to do that either. Let's see if I can drill this in a little better. Might help me get just a little further. Oh. No, I don't have enough to bite.
There we go.
Yeah, that might be as far as we're going to get, but we'll finish this off camera. There we go. That's a little better. And now we don't have as far to go. We could go in and drill that back. But that's what we'll do off camera. Just use a flathead bit and drill that back in.
Okay. Antlers.
Antlers. That's a big task.
Now, the last time you saw us, we had taken a threaded rod back in the thicker part of the antler, back here, drilled a hole into the right side, drilled a hole into the left side, and then we did, where we could reach up here, we did a smaller heavy wire, and we put epoxy in there. Nearly didn't make it in time and squeezed them together and had clamps. If you tune in last week, we were a little concerned that we weren't going to get it done. Okay, then today.
Well, between last week and what we did today, we fiberglassed that.
Oh, you fiberglassed the inside, didn't you?
Yep.
2 layers of fiberglass?
I actually did 3. Probably could have got away with 2, but we did an extra bit of fiberglass on the underside just to help support that seam.
And as much epoxy as you put in there and as much rod, no matter what, these are still susceptible to break. I mean, you just bump them and they're probably going to break. There's nothing that's going to hold them in here quite strong enough. So what we did today was we took ready rod and we bent it in an angle. We drilled a hole up into the main beam here so that we bent a piece of ready rod like that, drilled a hole, oversized hole up into the main beam so that it came out through the skull plate. So I have this actually goes up into here. We got 2 of them. We got one going in here, one going in here. We did our best to keep these as parallel as we could. Mm-hmm. We marked them. I held them and marked them, and then Brett drilled oversized hole. Now again, we're I would say, would you have like an inch hole?
Yep, 1 inch.
And we only have a ½ inch here because we got to be able to maneuver these right and left and forward and backward. Now another thing, there's a whole lot of bone in front of kind of the main beams. Yeah. So if we were to cut this skull plate to accommodate this mannequin, we would have not more than 2½ inches of bone holding this together. So if we were to, the horn, the main beam actually starts right here, and if we were to cut that off, we don't even have 3 inches of bone.
Yeah.
So in an effort to hold everything together with excess bone, we cut this off. Just took a saw and cut this off. Any of you old timers will know that long time ago, I think it was Jonas and Van Dyke's, both offered flat top forms. And flat top forms were just like this. They were cut right off the bridge of the nose. Animals like an antelope that sometimes had a Roman nose or different shaped snouts, you use the bone that was attached to the horns or to the antlers, you use that bone to actually take the shape of your snout, which worked really good. So once we put a little bit of Bondo auto body putty down in the void, stuck our threaded rod down in there, let it set up. If you want auto body putty to set up faster, you can warm it. And you took a heat gun and you got these nice and warm, stuck them down in there, and you don't have to wait for anything. It sets up really, really fast.
Yeah.
We weren't 100% positive on our location and our spacing, so we just put the bottom of the void, the bottom of the hole up in here with a little bit of auto body putty, so they're in there nice and solid, but if we needed to, we could bust them out.
Yep.
Then, once we test fitted them into our holes that you drilled, then we were positive that it, I think we're positive that it fit.
I think so.
We filled the brain cavity with auto body putty. To see how things were going to work, we're going to slide this down into the, oops, I'm probably not tightened up on the form either. And then we need to, can you bring his face this way? Yeah, yeah, now tighten that. Okay, now we have him lined up pretty good. And we decided that we needed a couple shims, right? Or did we?
Yep, we could do just a couple right over there. Right here.
Need another one?
We can break that. I think we can just break that in half. There we go. And then we've got some screws here. We can tighten that down. Do we need to raise him up? You okay?
We got to put Bondo underneath here. Yeah, you could raise him up. Just
Would that help to
not
look?
very far. Not very far for short little me. Good.
That good?
Yep. Okay. Mix some Bondo.
And, yep. Oh, I bet we broke your stir stick. That's what that was for. There's my shim.
Hand me your scissors.
Yeah.
Scissors Bondo openers.
Oh.
Make sure you always use the right tool for the right job. Now we're going to fill the void of the remaining brain cavity with auto body putty. Push it down. It's probably going to ooze out the sides here. We're going to blend the remaining, where it doesn't conform to where the meat was taken off the side. And then we're probably going to stick a couple shims because he needs to go just a little bit one way.
And worth noting too, anytime you're going to set antlers on something like a caribou or an elk or something that you don't do every day, make sure that you have some good reference material. And we've got a caribou book here, a couple observations, your shovel here, It usually sits fairly close down to the nose. I think we've seen some of them that actually touch the nose. And they sit pretty much parallel out from the eye. So you wouldn't want to, if you started with this raised really high, you might have an issue with the back of your skull if you notice that they were running off to the side, left or right. I think you would be able to adjust from there, but just make some observations and have some ideas on where you want to cut that skull to make it fit. Should I take them off?
You can take them off and I'll fill up that brain cavity.
Okay.
I mixed it somewhat weak so we don't get into trouble like we sometimes do.
We wouldn't dare.
Now, make sure, whatever kind of animal you're doing in this manner, make sure that he's going to go through a door. This caribou, the body is not as big as a big bull elk or, you know, that sort of thing. So we should be in good shape.
Now, are you going to fill the holes too, or just the...
I'm going to fill the holes too.
And these are the 1-inch holes that we drilled to accommodate the ready rod, and we kind of opened them up on the inside too, so there's a little bit of a pocket there, so there's plenty of room. And then we're going to put some right here on the top. I think your cardboard's covering your skull.
Think what?
I think your cardboard is in the camera view.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Perfect.
Now I got a little bit on the velvet, fell off. I'm going to not rub that, and I'm not going to wipe it off. It'll brush right off when it hardens.
Yeah, don't touch it now. That's a good tip for any people that haven't used a lot of Bondo for anything. If you spill it on something, don't try to get it off while it's soft like this. Let it gel, and then you can easily pick it off. It doesn't stick. Really, at first, it doesn't stick to much of anything.
Okay, are we ready to go?
I think so. We good?
Yep. I might mix up just a little bit more.
Do you want to do more underneath?
I'm going to have you lift it up one little
Okay.
bit around those burrs. Will it still lift?
Mm-hmm. You might get some in this hole nearest you. The other one looked like it filled pretty good.
Okay.
Little on this side. There you go. Perfect.
Try that. Go ahead.
Okay.
And then,
We got a
my
couple
side
little
needed
shims.
just
Yeah.
shims. We'll trim these off later. Okay? Set it down. Let me back up and look. That looks pretty good.
Now I can put a screw in. We have some pilot holes through the skull, and that might suck it down a little bit.
Yep. Looks very good. Can I hold?
We good for
I
center?
think that's good.
Another screw or?
You can.
Which would you rather tighten front?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so. Good, 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 good. That helped a lot. He's a little not symmetrical from one side to the other, and that evened him up a lot. Okay, good.
Good. Bondo's still soft if we need to change anything.
And now is a good time to start carefully, if you have any left over, which I did, building up the meaty areas. Now the auto body putty is something that you can easily carve before it gets hard. And you can file it, but once it gets hard, you're gonna have to grind it, and there'll be a lot of dust.
Save a lot of time to trim it early.
Now you better go look, because if my eyes were crooked, we don't get a second chance at this. Want to change it? Speak now.
Yeah, we might, that shim might be a little,
High?
maybe just a touch high, I think.
Want one?
Let's try one. Let's tighten that down. I thought we had him a little closer. Might be good. Oh yeah.
Better?
Yeah, I think that helped, yeah.
Now, we have a lot holding these antlers on, so as fragile as they were, because they're broken half, you'd think nothing's going to keep them together. You can't glue half of a skull together and make them stay.
Yeah.
But we pinned them up in the front, in the back, epoxied that. Carefully, you put fiberglass mat, 2 layers or 3 layers of that. So all of that is helping, but still doesn't give me as much confidence as the rod, which comes from the main beam down through the wood, 3/4 inch wood, down into the foam, and that's all auto body puttied together. Then we're going to take more auto body putty, and we're going to fill in all of the tissue around, plus 4 screws are going to hold that together.
Yeah.
These can't come off, we hope.
We hope. And now it's just starting to gel. If you had any little spots you wanted to trim up, anything, check your velvet, make sure that there's anything. Oh, they're nice and clean, they look good. It's a real good time to do any of that type of stuff. So if you had to, you could now. But is that it?
And once this gets hard enough, you're going to want to use cuts off file, is my favorite tool.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, rasp like this, and don't gum up your rasp, but wait till it's just a little bit firmer, and then you can shape that and conform it from the skull to the foam. So next week we'll proceed on this even further. We'll probably go through eye setting, maybe put some ears in a mannequin, probably have some ears maybe preset because it's going to be a little bit like a deer. We will, let's see, can I borrow your knife here?
Yeah.
To clean my Bondo off my thing. Then we are going to eventually mount him. And we'll get him ready for the pedestal too, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a lot of good work done. We got the base done, horns altered, antlers are on, straight, we hope. We'll trim all this up. Now is a good time to do this. You have a window, don't go forgetting
Don't walk
what
away.
you're doing.
Don't answer the phone now.
And we have a giveaway. I think you have your, tear duct cutting tool?
Yeah, yeah. And that was for, how did they win that?
They win by liking and sharing the previous week's live video. So the person that liked and shared last week's live video is David Sunken. He's our lucky winner.
Oh, Dave Sunken. I know Dave Sunken. Thanks, Dave, for liking and sharing. And they get a tool. They get that tool with their next order.
That is correct. So like and share this video to automatically be entered into next week's giveaway. That will be announced during next week's live.
So next week we'll pick up right kind of where we left off. We'll probably finish this and conform all of this. We might set one eye so you don't have to see two done. We can even set an ear so we can show them that and take it off and maybe glue it into the cape. And we'll get a little farther along on our pedestal. And you're going to see a caribou mounted.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And just a couple of side notes. We've got Father's Day that's going to be coming up here in a few weeks. So we will be offering a 20% off Father's Day gift idea sale, which will include our apparel, large and small reference books, pan pastels.
Holy cow.
We've got a hunter's knife
big
set.
one.
Yeah, there's quite a few items included. So that goes until Sunday at midnight. And then we will also be doing a Father's Day coloring contest that will be posted on our social media.
Do the fathers color?
They absolutely can. All ages are welcome. So we encourage everybody to participate.
Okay, and next week you'll get to see a caribou begin to be mounted.
Have a good week.
Thanks.